Hello and welcome to Total Football Analysis. Today we will look at how Guardiola sets up Manchester City in 2019-20 and how new changes to the team may help them to take it one step further in Europe. Guardiola is quite flexible in his formations, but his preferred formation is a 4-3-3. He will often change the formation depending on the team he is playing against. However, regardless of the opponent or the formation, Manchester City are all about possession-based football. The thinking behind it is that the opposition cannot score if they do not have the ball. Last season, Manchester City averaged 64% possession in the league, which was more than any other team. Out of possession, they try to win the ball back as fast as possible in order to continue with the attack. Some teams seem more dangerous without the ball. They thrive in counter-attack situations. Manchester City are the opposite. They want to be on the ball as frequently as possible within the 90 minutes. In possession, Manchester City use several different tactics to get into the final third depending on how the opposition are playing. Against the teams that sit back, Manchester City usually find it quite easy to pass through them. With the ball deep in their own half, the Manchester City defenders have a lot of space to run into and make a pass forward. Aymeric Laporte is explicitly Manchester City's most comfortable defender on the ball, with a 92.3% pass success percentage, averaging only 0.3 bad controls per game and only being dispossessed typically 0.1 times per game. Laporte can be depended on to bring the ball up, especially when the opposition leaves space open for him to run into. In this situation, Laporte with possession finds himself in tons of space to run into against Watford during the FA Cup final. Laporte successfully gets to the halfway line while maintaining possession. Raheem Sterling drops deep to collect the ball. Laporte successfully makes the pass, allowing Sterling to start the attack in the final third. When teams decide to press Manchester City, Guardiola's side do not have the luxury of having a player bring the ball up into open space. Instead, they navigate through the press with short, quick passes. This is a risky tactic, and many teams would easily give up possession while they are in such a small proximity to the opposition players. However, Manchester City's extremely technical players are able to pull it off. The quick passes will achieve one of two things. The first is the opposition will tire from their press, and it will become a half-hearted effort. The second is the opposition will get disoriented with the press and are unable to make it effective. Once one of those two things happen, gaps are made and the Manchester City players have an extra moment on the ball. This allows them to quickly take the chance with a long pass, usually switching flanks. Usually, the receiver of the long pass is not marked because the opposition were pressing where the ball previously was. This scenario shows quick interplay between two Manchester City players on the left flank. Watford players press aggressively in a ball-near area. However, that creates space on the opposite side. Manchester City switch play, and Kyle Walker receives the ball on the right flank with loads of space to control the ball. Once Manchester City reach the final third, their formation looks like a 2-3-5. The three forward players, plus either the two fullbacks or the two advanced midfielders, look to create goal-scoring opportunities in several different ways. Having 5 players on the full attack is a nightmare for any team to defend against, especially when the players are as good as the ones Manchester City have. This situation shows Manchester City with their left back, their left winger, 2 advanced midfielders as well as their striker in the final third looking to score against Watford. Here, again, Manchester City have 5 players in the final third against Brighton looking to open the scoring. In another case, we can see 5 Manchester City players in the final third ahead of their teammate Laporte, who has possession. His pass starts the play ahead that allows Sergio Aguero to score the equalizing goal. Although Brighton have multiple players in the box, they are still unable to cope with how attack-oriented Manchester City are. When watching Manchester City in possession, it is clear that they have a few distinct ways that they try and create goal-scoring opportunities. In the 2-3-5, the 5 forward players stretch the pitch and attempt to use it in its full. This creates a few dilemmas for the opposition's defensive line. More often than not, no matter who they decide to cover, they leave a gap for someone else to exploit. One of Manchester City's plays when one of the central players has the ball is that one of the 5 forward players drops deep to collect the ball. The opposition's fullback will often follow, leaving a gap that the widest player can run into. Usually another defender will come across and try to cover the wide player, but it's often too late. By then, the white player would have already taken the shot or laid it off for a simple tap in. If the ball starts out wide, often the 4 other forwards will make runs into the box, anticipating a cross. If the fullback attempts to stop the cross, it leaves a 4 versus 3 situation in the box in Manchester City's favour. It's clear to see why Manchester City scored the most goals in the Premier League from open play. 72 goals came from Manchester City's build-up and interplay into the final third. Opposition teams usually catch Manchester City on the transition. When committing so many players forward, a quick change of possession can be dangerous. Usually, when they lose the ball, Manchester City try to quickly win it back before it can get into dangerous areas. If they cannot, the opposition can easily exploit the high line. Manchester City usually will commit tactical fouls to stop these counterattacks. Here we can see Leicester City winning possession in midfield. 3 players who are a part of Manchester City's backline are high up the pitch. Central defender Vincent Kompany immediately tries to press and win the ball back. As he fails to do so, Leicester City's attacker is running at Manchester City's disoriented backline. However, Man City left back Zinchenko commits the foul in order to allow his team time to set up defensively. When Manchester City are unable to win the ball back and feel the opposition is not threatening enough to commit the tactical foul, they will go back into their regular 4-3-3 shape. Anyone who watched Manchester City with a critical eye can easily see how important Fernandinho is to the side. He's essentially a deep-lying playmaker who is involved in almost all of Manchester City's plays, whether it be attacking or defending. Unfortunately for him, Fernandinho, who is 34 years old, may not be able to play maximum minutes at the top flight for much longer. After missing out on a few players, Guardiola has found who he wanted in Rodri. The Spanish international was obviously brought in as Fernandinho's long-term successor. One can see that Rodri's attacking output is far less than Fernandinho's. While Rodri's playstyle is more defensive, the vast difference in quality can easily be explained by each team's tactics as a whole. Rodri played at Atletico Madrid, and they are much more defensively compact than Manchester City. To further reinforce that Rodri's play is more defensive than Fernandinho's, the graph shows that Rodri spends more time defending than Fernandinho, and does it at a higher level as well. Nevertheless, it is uncanny how similar they are. One of the must-have attributes for a defensive midfielder in Guardiola's system is the link-up play. The defensive midfielder is the player that joins the defense and the attack together. Both Rodri and Fernandinho have great link-up play. Of course, there will be differences between the two players. Fernandinho has a much better ability at winning ground duels, and Rodri's ball retention is unmatched. However, the similarities are apparent. It would come as a big shock if Rodri does not become one of Manchester City's most essential players in the long run. To sum up, Manchester City are a fantastic team with a world-class manager. By looking at their tactics and statistics, we have proven that they can compete with Europe's best.